Hi, and welcome to Honey Should We Homeschool.
We're your hosts, Leah,
And Tom.
the proud parents of a little boy and a baby girl, and we're currently asking the question, honey, should we homeschool?
We're inviting you to join us on an exploration into education with the ultimate goal of figuring out what is right for our children.
We'll be interviewing people who currently work in the schooling system, home educators and students of both paths, as well as doing research into some of the hot topics such as socialisation, bullying, higher education and exams.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can find us on Instagram at Honey Should We Homeschool.
Thanks for being here.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Honey Should We Homeschool. Today we are lucky enough to be joined by Lewis, a former teacher turned home educating parent who now runs an alternative education space nestled among the trees. He's also a fellow podcaster and the host of the Forest School podcast, which we'll of course link in the description below. So if you're curious about what makes a teacher leave the classroom for the forest and how learning actually happens once you're out there, grab a cuppa and settle in. Hi Lewis.
Oh, so professional. It's so smooth.
It was rehearsed.
That was just like straight in. It's impressive, honestly.
And now I need to pull up my question list.
That's fine. We'll make some noise over all of this. We go da, da, da. Go on.
How are you
This is
this
it.
evening?
I'm doing all right. I've had a very busy couple of days. I've been off to see the hunting of the Earl of Roan yesterday, which is in. So I'm in Devon, and in North Devon, the hunting of the Earl of Roan, which is like this festival up in a little village up in North Devon, where the story goes that somebody was shipwrecked a long time ago and was a bit of a miscreant. But basically, every year they get this big obios, which is this giant multicolored horse costume. A person who's dressed entirely in burlap sits backwards on a donkey and rides through the village. There are soldiers, again, in like multicolored ribbon costumes. Every 20 or 30 meters, they shoot him. He falls off the back of the donkey. And then the obios comes round and brings him back to life. And then they carry on until they get to the sea. And then they throw the Earl of Roan into the sea, and he has to wash out to sea. And it was stopped in like the 30s because it was too drunken and licentious. And so they brought it back in the 70s expressly to make it a bit more. That's what I've been doing. And then today, I've been off in Dartmoor celebrating the camping Supreme Court judgment. So I've been off Morris dancing with people and stuff around a massive hill in the middle of Dartmoor. So I'm
Amazing.
fully cultured up at the moment.
I love the fact that in the 70s they went, not enough alcoholic events. Which ones were banned due to alcohol?
we need,
Let's
yeah.
bring that one back. Also, how is that not as famous as cheese rolling? That sounds incredible.
Oh yeah, it's great. If you want to go have a look, there's a really interesting artist called Ben Edge who has been on our podcast. He's got a book out where he went and like catalogued and did paintings of all these like tiny cultural festivals around the UK. Just found all these little villages and like filmed them and really like recorded them, and like they're on the rise. Those kind of things. People are looking for community now, I think, more than they have for a long time. And those things, they build community in a really unique way, I think. So yeah.
Amazing. That sounds worth a trip.
Yeah. To the questions.
I mean, I don't know. Is it going to be more exciting than...
That was a curveball, wasn't it? You asked me how I was doing, and I started talking about a guy in burlap getting shot. Welcome to the episode.
Start to some weird horror film.
It's great. It's got a big old, like, it looks like a Jason mask, but it's painted red and black.
Just to clarify for anybody that's listening from an international space, not the UK, when you say getting shot...
Oh, I mean, it's fake guns with powder charge in, and they go, pow! It's not actually. No, it's not. No.
Oh, good. Now we've clarified that.
I thought it was worth it for any areas of the world which are a little bit less strict on guns than the UK. So, first question, how was your school experience when you were little?
How was my school experience? Fine. Fine is probably the answer. I think the story I would have told for a long time was that I was very competent and very high achieving until I was like early teenagehood. And then I went to a grammar school, which, again, for people that might not know how they work in the UK. It's like you pass an entry exam to go to them. So that it was a single sex school that you all had to pass an exam to get into. And at that point, I think I had a turning point, and I just kind of checked out and was kind of then a bit more like, okay, what can I do to just get by? So that would have been what I'd said for a long time. But more recently, the lens that I've got on it is that I think what I had was a very strong anxiety response as a child. I don't know if you've ever come across the, like, people know the fight or flight or freeze, and then fawn is one that people are often. I don't know if you guys have come across fawn.
No.
So fawn is the anxiety response that I realised that I had for most of my childhood, which is if you equate them all to tigers. So you can fight the tiger, you can freeze and hope the tiger doesn't see you, you can flee from the tiger, and fawn would be like trying to make friends with the tiger so it doesn't eat you. Would be like going, here you go, no, don't eat me, I'm a friend, here's a nice one, here you go, here, kitty. Which sounds mad, but put it into the context of a school experience. That is the child that always wants to take the register, that offers to sharpen pencils, that never wants to rock the boat. That is like, they look like, on the outside, if you don't examine it, good students. I'm using air quotes for people that are listening. These are the air quotes, right? They look like good students because they're always so helpful. They're always so kind, and they always are just a joy to have in the classroom. It's an anxiety response, and it's absolutely terrifying. I had someone that came to one of my sessions who, I've done the research, I know this stuff, but I had somebody who used to ask me how my day was going. This is like a 7-year-old who would ask me how my day was going every 20 minutes. Because it's an anxiety response. He wanted to check I wasn't going to eat him. He needed to be like, there we go. I'm nice, aren't I? I'm doing the thing. So retrospectively, that's what my school experience was a very strong anxiety response to school, to be the like good child. And then when you hit teenage years, that fawn response doesn't work. It does, like in a primary school setting, kids up to like 9 or 10, you will get like absolute heaps of praise for being the one that wants to sharpen pencils, for being the one that wants to take the register, for being the one that says like, I'll sort the books out. Can I stay in at break? Would you like me to get the stuff out for whatever else? When you're 13, it's creepy, right? It doesn't work.
And you get a lot of grief from the other kids for it.
You get a lot of grief from the other kids. So if you've learned a system that works and then you hit 13 and it suddenly doesn't work, that's what I think happened to me. Is I really fell off. I had to find other strategies to deal with anxiety responses. And I did that through kind of finding niches. And I found music, and I went and eventually did a music degree and did a lot of music is still a huge part of what I do now. So that was my kind of school experience.
What do you think caused your anxiety?
I don't think I'm neurotypical in that sense. I think that there's I haven't gone for any kind of formal diagnosis, but it would make sense to me looking back, and everything I know now. I work almost exclusively with neurodivergent people, both adults and children, and so an anxiety response of not necessarily understanding what's being asked of you, or not being or basically masking very hard. If you've come across masking, just masking really, really hard. If you don't know what's going on, it's a pretty good strategy.
Fair. So what was it that made you want to become a teacher?
If I'm totally honest, it's one of the most secure routes out of a music degree, because when you do, so I went for a music degree because I didn't have to do any work, because I'm good at music. It never felt like work. Instead of, my people I was at uni with were writing 10,000 word dissertations. To pass my course, I had to write 15 minutes of music. That was my equivalent, right? And so after a music degree, one of the things they will really put you towards is like teaching, because as a musician you do time management, you do collaborative stuff, you're improvising, you understand how to like work within a big group or a small group, all of those, like, I'm using air quotes again, soft skills really apply to teaching in a very strong way. And I like it. I still like teaching. I like supporting people. I like the, one-to-one connections. It just, teaching wasn't what I state teaching wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I went and did my teaching degree, and it was like, here's the latest research. I was very lucky and I got into quite a good university for my teaching degree. And it was like, yeah, here's the latest research. Here's some like theories you should be looking at. Here's what's coming out of different universities, da 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 da. And then you go into a school, and my experience was that they were like, okay, you can't do that. We bought a literacy scheme of work 5 years ago. And because we paid 10 grand for it, we need to get our money's worth. So you're doing that now, please.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't.
You can laugh.
No,
It's fine.
It's funny. It's
Like
funny.
that was my, and that's not to say that's everyone's experience, but that was my experience. And lots of like, what I'm doing now was what I thought teaching was going to be, and I get a lot out of meeting people's needs, and I really thought teaching was going to be like, okay, I'll have this like 20 to 30 group, kids, and I'm going to work out what they need, and I'm going to plan this stuff around who they are and what their interests are, and where they are developmentally, and I will like, go, oh, okay, you're here, so let's plan a thing for you, and this is your, but actually it's a linear march where people, keep up or get left behind. This is the scheme of work. It is the 2nd of May. This is week 3 of the literacy scheme of work. Do it tomorrow. We're doing number 4. And if you didn't get number 3, I'm very sorry. Number 4 has to go, and number 5, and then number 6, because otherwise you get chewed out. Why people are getting left behind? That's my big gripe.
What age did you teach?
I taught in a very small school, so I had teaching experience through my degree and stuff from early years right through to year 6. As a teacher, I was it was a mixed group of 3 and 4, year 3 and 4, so that's 7 to 9 ish, I think. I don't remember now. It was a while ago now.
Sorry, I'm just fidgeting.
So I guess in the teaching vein, it doesn't sound just that dissimilar to a lot of people we've spoken to in the education world, to be honest, in terms of that being left behind quite quickly and not being able to spend the time with some of those students who might need the extra attention or might need the extra tutoring. But what were the best and worst bits of teaching for you?
I think the worst bits were that I didn't fit. There's a I think I would love to stand up and be like, do you know what, I left because I wanted to change the world and I had views of this, and I'm an absolute bastion of like, moral greatness, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do what people wanted me to do, and I think I want to be honest about that like the stuff I was being asked to do, some of it was not particularly reasonable because I didn't have a particularly great head teacher towards the end. But some of it was just like, I'm not built for that. I'm not built for deep marking. So one of the things I was asked to do was to deep mark, which is, have you done deep mark? Is deep marking a term where, okay, deep marking is every single correction, every single full stop, capital letter, spelling mistake, a grammar's not right, everything. I was asked to deep mark literacy books, maths books, and science books daily. So in science, if you are writing down, like you're getting the kids to write down, how an experiment went and what they did, I was expected to go through with some kids that could barely get 5 words down on the page. I was expected to go through and correct every capital letter they've got wrong, every full stop they got. So that's 3 subjects a day. That's 90 books that you're expected to sit through and do that. I can't do that. I'm not built for that. Some people can do it. Some people have systems where they can kind of, it makes sense to them because they can go dung 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 dung. That's all fine. But I couldn't do that.
Or now you can just take a photo and get ChatGPT to do it for you.
Well, yeah, there you go. But even then, even then, the expectation was that I would then write comments in all three of those books, like an individual, next time, what do you think you could do to do this? And the start of the next lesson had to be them writing a response to my feedback. Again, kids that could barely get like the word Wednesday down, and they're expected to answer a question that says, what do you think you could do next time in the experiment, or something like that. And then sometimes I was being asked to respond to their response to my response.
Did you ever get to do that just in conversation, or did it all have to be like in writing?
The system that I was in, it needed to be writing because it needed to be accountable. I was told many times because every I think lots of people who are in senior leadership team in schools get a bad rep because people feel like the buck stops with them, because sometimes head teachers can do different things, but they are under pressure. They are under pressure from someone above them who wants stuff delivered. They want the Ofsted report to come through well. They want standards to be improved across year 6 SATs or whatever it is. So their only method is to put the thumb screws onto the people below them. And so then as a teacher, you can sometimes feel like, oh, okay, they're just having a go at me. But then as a teacher, if you're getting that, everyone's just sandwiched, right? Because then as a teacher, your only option is to kind of put the thumb screws on your class and go, I'm getting chewed out because your books aren't good enough. So I need to put this on you. And then, to get them off my back, to get the person off the head teacher's back. Do you know what I mean? It's pressure all the way down.
There's that quite famous cartoon, I think, of birds sitting on a tree, and the top one's like a vulture or something, and the birds underneath get progressively smaller, and the vultures dropping things onto the ones below, and then the ones below are dropping them onto the branch below that. And by the time it gets to the bottom branch, there's loads of them, and they are covered.
Yeah, which and I only bring that up like empathetically to be like, every teacher I've ever met is trying to do their best. They're not out there twiddling mustaches and being like, nah, I shall make people emotionally shit, right? But it's everyone is under pressure to do what's expected of them, and that is hard. But to flip it, the best thing about teaching that I really enjoyed about primary, this is why I went into primary, is I think primary education, and to an extent home education, is one of the last refuges of polymaths. So these people from like Victorian eras where they weren't just a scientist, they weren't just an artist. They're called polymaths because they were like, holy shit, this guy does paintings and puts chemicals in a jar. What a crazy guy. And also, he sometimes digs up old bones. He's just a weird guy that does all those things. Do you know that kind of, they're called a savant, and they can pull different ideas together and,
or like Da Vinci, right?
Exactly that kind of thing. And these people often make big breakthroughs because they can pull metaphors from different areas and go, oh, chemistry understands it like this. But if I think about paint when I'm doing art, I can pull this stuff together. Primary education, home education are one of the last areas where, as an adult, you get to be like, do you know what? I'm doing Romans and a bit of maths and a bit of art, and I get to pull all these things together. Do you know what I mean? There's very few kind of professions anymore where you are encouraged to pull it from different subject matters. So I loved that about teaching, and I still love that about my job now, because that is what I do now all the time.
We do have that in society now. There is definitely a focus on expertise or kind of individual contributor type roles, so that you are able to potentially excel or master one particular thing. There is an industry which is a bit more generalist, but it still tends to focus in one area. So it might be in one industry or something like that. So you'll be a generalist in one industry, but I think you're right. There are very few areas where you are able to pull from, Romans and chemistry.
If you're an accountant and you rock up and you go like, so in ancient Greece, right? It's not going well, right? But I get to do that daily. Get to just kind of pull interesting things. Do you know squirrels? The the height that a squirrel would have to fall to die is 4,300 miles, because squirrels can get to terminal velocity and survive. So once they get to as fast as they will fall, they can just survive that. So 4,300 miles is long enough that they'd starve to death.
That's an incredible fact.
I'm saving that one in the bank. Like, that's
Right?
amazing.
You don't need to know that. I don't need to know that. It's a joyful thing that we can just put into the world. They would have to starve because there's no amount of impact that they can't survive. They spin their tails and they rotate their bodies so that they hit a critical point. Yeah.
I love squirrels. That was an amazing fact. Thank you.
Oh, our kids are going to love that one.
And now I don't feel so bad when the squirrel falls off the bird feeder.
Which is about my height, which is not very tall. So, you know.
Oh, that's not going to bother them at all. Absolutely not at all.
That was really lovely. I like that idea that small people are generalists as well. They're able to try and explore a bit of everything.
Yeah, and we are for a long time. You know, people. You know, small people will try and put stuff in different places, and often that's one of the things that is tricky. Not just in an intellectual sense, but quite often physical resources in a lot of settings will be siloed. Will be like, this is where the blocks are, this is where the paint is, this is where the maths cubes are. You can get one out at a time. The maths cubes stay here. But what might you learn if you took the maths cubes and pushed them in the sand? Like, what happens if you get the sand and you mix some paint in and you get like gritty paint, right? That's what small people want to do, is polymath and go, right, bit of this, bit of this. How does it go together? Adults, for a lot of the time, are very kind of like, for valid reasons, for financial reasons, you can't afford to like cock up the paint, right? For reasons of like, it's always me that does the tidying up, right? I do get the empathetic reasons for this, but to acknowledge that someone wants to mix mediums to learn something or to explore something, I think is valid.
That explains the state of my little boy's room, actually, most of the time. But you're right. It's the adults that go in and say, "Well, you need to tidy that up," and he's like, "Well, I know everything is."
We have just done. So I've just done an episode on our podcast about the idea that, like, if you want to get yourself off the hook, being tidy is not morally better than being untidy. There is no moral judgment. There is no like morality to stuff being on a shelf versus stuff being on the floor. One is not objectively better than the other, right? So you can completely let go of all of that, right? It doesn't. You might have reasons like, we don't want the stuff to get broken, but if it's on the floor and it's safe, that's the thing, But often we get tied up in this moralistic thing of like being a good person, and good people tidy up and good people do anything. I talked about it for like an hour and a bit, so I won't do that again.
I think for me it's like a stress thing. Like, the more like mess and stuff there is, the more like I feel. Again, I'm doing hand gestures of like
T-Rex hands.
Like T-Rex hands. Yeah.
I think the only one for me is I'll be honest, stepping on one of those Lego pieces or toy cars. Oh.
Yeah.
No.
But then, okay, so here's a segue then, because I think there's a thing here about you're in a house and you have shared needs inside that house, and so you negotiate the thing of shared needs. What do we need? And you might have to then say like, I appreciate that you want to do this, however, I need this. Is there a way that we can meet in the middle? Can there be a pathway through the Lego? Can there be like, I don't know, not to be, I have to leave the room if my children get Play-Doh out. The smell of it does something to me. I can't, but I'm like, here's the room, I'm going over there, this is the thing, we meet our needs. When it comes to, because at some point we'll have to talk about the fact that I home ed my kids. When it comes to like, why home ed, and people that suddenly, when it comes to children's education, if you explain those things to people about like, you're in a house and you have shared needs, and you're out at the park and maybe you can't spend all day pushing them on the swing because that's what they want to do, and you take away, no adult questions it. When you go like, well, you're tired, you need to give yourself a break, it's about meeting everybody's needs. the second you start talking about home education, if you said like, I can't do a school run, my kids might be able to, but I can't. Suddenly the expectation is that I become a martyr and put everything aside for what is the social norm. That no longer are we allowed to say, hey, we're in a shared need, and actually as a family, this is one of the things we need to do, or these are the needs we have. The expectation is that you shelve everything, and like it's a bit of, sometimes people like self-flagellate and they're like, well, I yeah, it's always hard, I hate it. They talk about how much they hate it, and because they hate it, they're sort of annoyed that if you're not doing it, because then there's an element of like, you're making me question whether I needed to suffer, and I don't like that. I'm convinced, by the way, if you want a theory that's going to go, so like, like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, the peak humor was all about like, I hate my wife, right? Do you know that kind of style of humor, that kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, her indoors or whatever else? Millennial humor in 20 years is going to be, I didn't like my kids. If you could scroll on Instagram, how many parenting things
Yes.
are like, oh, here's a reason my kids are crying, or like, oh my God, I hate the thing. Those kids are going to still be online. They're going to see it, and that's going to be our trope as millennials. That's the trope. Will be like, we just made jokes about how much we didn't like our kids. I
But it
don't.
happens.
We don't.
That
But
happens.
like that's the trope. Do you know what I mean?
It happens a
Yeah.
lot, and I do understand the idea of shared challenges. So the things that were hard that you have to do for your kids, and talking about those and going, oh, wasn't this hard work, or But I think I hear a lot from people at work who don't home ed their kids. At the end of at the beginning of the holidays, just before the holidays, say, oh no, they're going to be home for a couple of weeks. They're going to be home for 2 or 3 weeks, and at the end of holidays, yes, they're going back to school. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't get that.
No.
I don't understand it.
Okay, so here's the empathy, like, meet people where they are. If the majority of my relationship with someone was school runs and bedtimes, because that's what a lot of parents are doing, is they have a couple of
And that,
hours in the morning to get them
yeah,
ready, which is stressful. You have a
yeah.
couple of hours in the evening, you get them home from whatever clubs or whatever they've done, and you have the stressful couple of hours. In that crucible, you're not going to build a relationship that you then want to have for a week at a time.
And they also struggle with, I think there's a large struggle with being set up for it. So if people are working, then having to fit it alongside work.
Yeah.
So it's all those challenges, which I think amount to that. So you're right. I think the empathetic view is may not be very well set up for those times where the kids are off for extended periods of time, and consequently it feels like much more of a challenge than it might otherwise.
Yeah, we just hide when it's school holidays. Everyone else is out.
Yeah.
Suddenly have to shrink back in. You're all in the park.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Summer's hard. Just to go back to school a minute,
Sure.
What was your experience with Ofsted?
So I was never Ofsteded as a teacher. I have been Ofsteded now in my forest school business.
Okay.
But under different circumstances. So we had mocksteds when I was a teacher, which is like somebody who used to be an Ofsted inspector comes in and is paid to basically run a fake one to flag stuff up and go, if this was a real Ofsted, you would have been pulled up for X, Y, Z, and it can help schools to highlight stuff beforehand. I can understand the reason for it. Was it fun? Absolutely not. So that's my experience of it. As a teacher, it's kind of like a mock thing. As a forest school leader, I'm on a different thing. So Ofsted has many different branches, different registers is probably is a more accurate term. So the forest school stuff that I do is registered on the childcare register, but not the early years register. So we can take children from when they would be going into year 1, September after they turn 5. And because of the register we're on, those children count as home educated, which means that we are Ofsteded for safeguarding, health and safety, and like general well-being, but we are not Ofsteded on content. at all.
Amazing.
Whereas if we were to have children younger than year one, so younger than the September after before year 5, the expectation is that you are delivering the early years curriculum, no exceptions. So we ran a forest school kindergarten for 2 years, and the Ofsted kind of advice that we got was like, you have to have, this is in a woods, right? It's just a piece of woods. Reading corner, phonics, resources. You need to have maths displays. You need to have everything labeled. You need to,
Maths displays in a wood.
yeah, all of that kind of stuff. There's no wiggle room on the expectations. The inspectors, even if they love you, kind of have to tick boxes and go, oh, there's none of this. And so we stopped that after a little while. Partly we weren't enjoying it because just the expectations were so high, but also the risk that you run with. So Ofsted is, for as much as it is a scary thing, in the world that I see it now, in terms of safeguarding and well-being and whatever else, it's there to kind of make sure children are safe. I don't agree with the content stuff, right? That's a whole separate ball game. But but if you are found to not be delivering, so if they'd come to the kindergarten and they'd gone no maths displays, no phonics things, they wanted us to have like books out all the time, and we were like, they're getting ruined. This is Britain, and this is the weather, right? Even if they're not in the rain, they curl anyway. But if that had gone badly, Ofsted can shut down an entire setting, and you as an individual aren't allowed to work in childcare anymore. So it would have not just shut down the kindergarten, it would have shut down any home ed work, it would have shut down any parent and toddler group work, it would have shut down all that stuff. So it's very high risk because, and this is where I'm like, I understand the purpose of it. They just need to keep kids safe. I think the content bit is where I have issues. If you
Well, yeah,
follow
because
my
that's not
logic.
keeping them safe. Like
Yeah.
making sure you have a maths display and keeping books out in the rain isn't keeping them safe. That's just, yeah. Yes.
So we have a question from one of our listeners. If that's all right.
Yeah.
So we put the name in. No. So what was it that made you realise you couldn't make a change from the inside and that you needed to move away from the system? And a follow-up question to that is, and what was your most magical moment of incidental learning?
Well, I think I kind of touched on the first bit earlier when I was like, I didn't leave with some kind of noble white knight quest. I'm going to go save the world. I probably had moments of that, but by and large, what I see myself as being able to do now is to be a petri dish. So one of the great things about having, like, we've got quite a big social media presence, and we have the podcast, and we can be this kind of petri dish where we're doing weird, funky things, and other people can look at that and go, "Ah, I think we're going to take some of that." We get to be fully, culturing and doing, because of the way that my business is set up. If I read a book tomorrow, the following day I can put that into practice. I don't have this kind of, oh, we've got to put it into 6-week plans, or unfortunately this thing's you've missed the boat, now it's all this. I can just go, this is how I'm going to do it now. So I love that, and I love being able to have a bit, like I said at the start, about having my teaching training and it being like, here's the latest research. I'm always operating on the latest research that I have, and I love that about it. So if there's anything that I left to do, that's the thing that I love the most now. I think maybe this is my own hang-ups, but I don't love the focus on learning as time has gone on. That's going to sound right. I'm going to backpedal that massively now because that's the worst clip. What I mean by that is that, like, I think there's this massive emphasis on it because when people leave state education, where they take their kids out, that's the biggest question. That's the biggest concern that people have. Like, the biggest thing that people will put on you is like, well, how are you doing learning? And also the biggest thing that we put on ourselves as home educators is any moment, your anxiety can spike and you can be like, oh, learning. Oh yeah, crap. Get that out. Do that kind of thing.
That literally happened to me today.
But I do get it. like I empathize with it, and I have the same, I'm a human. We all go through these kind of things. I think I really enjoy. There are moments of growth, but they're not. Learning is such a like, you didn't know how to do a thing and now you know how to do a thing, or you didn't know a thing and now you know a thing. Like you've just learned a thing about squirrels, right? That was very transactional. Like here's the thing, now you know that thing. But that's not the same as what I love. The bit that I love of my job is seeing somebody else discover something or develop something or grow into a person over a long period of time that they weren't before, or that they've been able to become because of the space. Most of my job is space holding, so I'm just there to hold a space in which people are safe and they can explore stuff, and we can develop pro-social skills and all of those things. But I think if I was looking for learning, I would start to be disappointed when it wasn't happening, when I didn't see it. Whereas they are perfect already, they are fine, right? If I just hold space for them and they don't develop and grow and learn and stuff at all, they are already perfect. It doesn't matter. So I'm not there to nudge stuff. And I think also, again, with all of the empathy in the world, that like that thing of like, oh my God, are they learning enough? Like happens to all of us. A lot of us have so my kids have never been in any kind of education, but for people that have taken their kids out of education, I think it's even more true, which is that by and large, I think the biggest driver of taking kids out of school is people are like, I don't want my kids to be yardstick measured. I don't want them to be like held up and being like, well, you're a 2B, well, you're a 4A, oh, well, you're not learning this. With this narrow focus on, a few skills, literacy and maths and science, which are valuable. But what I often see is quite defensively, people go, I'm going to take my kids out of school because I don't want them to be measured by that yardstick. And the second they're out of school, people desperately try and grab that yardstick back and go, we're doing literacy and we're doing maths and we're doing science and it's like that whole system that you just tried to be like, maybe this isn't the way I want my kids measured. Lots of home ed families grab it straight back and then try and justify themselves. Like if I disagree with someone because they have a different like faith to me, I don't then try and use their faith to justify whether I'm a good person. I'm like, that's your faith, you go for it, that's fine. But so many people are on the outside of state education using the state education yardsticks to justify if they're doing a good job still.
Question. Do you think that is potentially because of the local authorities' involvement? Like, if you have to report to them, they often ask about what you are doing for numeracy and literacy.
Yeah, I think it can be. That again is one of those like, birds on a log, or birds on a branch. People have got pressures. People have to perform to certain pressures. But I don't know of anyone who has ever been held up to. I know local authorities vary massively. I'm very lucky in Devon. There is, I think, 4 or 5 education officers, and in the hundreds of thousands of home educating children, right? They're never going to find us, right? It's fine, right? But I know in other local authorities that's very different. But as I understand it, the majority of the way that the law works is that you need to be providing adequate education. Adequate does not mean the state's adequate education. Adequate means adequate. So I think sometimes people fall back on it because it's easy. It's very easy to go, we are reading, we are writing. You can buy resources so that you can level and say like, oh, well, they're doing year 2 maths and they're doing this. And you can just grab that yardstick back and go, we are still going to measure our kids with that, whether they know it or not, or whether you use it or not, whether it's overt or you're doing it, secretly under the kitchen table, making notes on a clipboard. I just think I think it's worth reflecting, like why so many home educating families are desperate to grab that yardstick back.
I think there's probably a case to say that it is very heavily, I don't want to use the term evidence based, but it's an accessible way of determining. I'm not even sure I want to use that terminology, but it's an accessible way of potentially being able to track progress. Whether that's right or wrong is an entirely different thing. But when you do go into the home education environment, there's so much to learn and so many ways you have to try and explore how you understand
There's
what
as many
kids are
ways to home ed as
learning.
there are home educating families. You know.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So it's a hard um it's a hard concept, and I know this because I personally was when Leah first said, "Oh, I really want to home educate," and I was like, I'm not so
Absolutely not.
I'm not so sure about this.
Mm-hmm.
It was only when I started to delve into it and really understand that actually, you know, A levels, GCSEs, all those kinds of things don't actually mean that you've had an adequate education. They've given you an entry point into a next form of potential education, which we've talked about on a previous podcast. When you get to later in life, if you want to do things like
Mm-hmm.
become a physicist, you can reverse engineer your entry into those areas of the education system which you need to get. But I think for me, my personal opinion of it was, I was like, well, how do I know they're getting an adequate education? And until we started doing this and actually sort of exploring and understanding homeschooling, different ways to that kids learn, I feared a little bit, and that probably drove my personal agenda. I'm not speaking for everybody at homeschools, obviously, and it's only since learning so much that we've learned that I'm like, yeah, I'm not bothered anymore.
What if I go like this real radical, and I don't 100% believe this, but let me throw it out as a thought experiment. Let's say that somebody just doesn't develop math skills. You go through a whole home ed thing, and they just don't develop math skills because you've done other stuff. Like a lot of families will go out and do a lot of like. I know loads of families that do loads of bushcraft, right? When they are in the adult world, this is a hypothetical thought experiment, right? They're in a room of 20 people. 19 of them can do maths. So they can just ask them to do the maths. Like, if you're hiring a team, why? This is the thing of state education. Everybody gets the same thing. Everyone is homogenous. Everyone has done the thing. And I'm playing this up, right, as a thought experiment. I believe their math skills are valuable, but like, for hyperbole, let's take this out to its extreme. If somebody else knows how to write paragraphs and this person doesn't, what an excellent team they will make together, because while that person was learning to do paragraphs, this person has gone and learned about something else. And so when they come together, then they have the combined skill set. We talked earlier about like this idea of people needing to be like siloed, like having to just have one focus and be like, that's their thing. But also the reverse is true, in that we expect everyone to be through the education system, everyone should know maths. Everyone should know how to write a persuasive letter to their local chip shop. Everyone should know how to put bicarbonate of soda into a model of a volcano, right? Then you meet adults and you've just great, you've got the shared experience of like community building, but in terms of skill sets to tackle problems, you've got a homogenous skill set. So what would be wrong with having somebody that doesn't measure up to the maths yardstick if they can find people that did later?
Yeah, I was going to say Simon Pegg very famously came out when Rishi was trying to enforce higher education maths, or it might not have been higher education maths, but
like 18-year-old maths, wasn't it? You had to do it to your 18.
Yeah, maths up
and
to 18.
Simon Pegg came out and said, "Right, I didn't do very well in maths. I didn't need it. I don't
Didn't
need
need
it."
anything past primary school.
And it was brilliant. It was a brilliant little comment that he threw out there in terms of actually, yeah, Simon Pegg's done pretty well for himself without maths.
Yeah. Also, so our roof was broken the other day, and we had some roofers come round, and they wrote up an invoice. And I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, it's like, and I went through and I deep marked it. I deep marked his invoice, and there was
And sent it to me.
and there was like grammar and punctuation, spelling mistakes, and all sorts. And I was like, does it matter though? Because he's clearly good at his job. He was very professional. He's managed to convey what he needed to convey, and he's been paid. Does it matter that his spelling and punctuation and grammar was not particularly very good?
I think we are possibly the generation that is breaking this idea of like, if you go through to higher education, you will do well, you will be successful. That is the route to success. I think lots of people my age, I'm in my mid-30s, lots of people my age were told that that was the thing. We all went to university, we all did the thing, and then it's not worked. You know, the world has not like I mean, it does. I'm fine. You know what I mean? I've got a roof over my head. I'm doing, I'm doing all right. But that's through self-directed stuff. That's not through the education that was forced onto me. And so I think we will see a widening of skill sets and a widening of, stuff. And also, like you've mentioned Chat GPT a few times, and how long will it be before that stuff makes the different skill sets needed? We don't need to use abacuses by and large but we don't hold on to them archaically and go, no, abacus is a core. This is core that people must learn abacuses, right? We just develop things. And actually, one of the really interesting things is if you look back at the history of GCSE maths papers in this country, when pocket calculators started to come in, the level of maths shifted. So what was GCSE or O level or that 16-year-olds maths is now what kind of 10-year-olds do with calculators. And the level at which we are able to achieve maths has gone up. And so who's to say that other other tools will similarly do that. Once we can like get our thoughts down and then have them neatened up, have the paragraphs done, have the full stops all put in the right place. Who knows how many amazing thoughts we are missing because people can't get them into publishers because they can't do paragraphs and they can't do full stops. There are going to be some amazing thinkers out there that if they could just talk into a device and have the punctuation and grammar done to make it palatable, because there's a skill in making it palatable and there is a benefit to being like, this is easily accessible. If someone has to like hold up your writing every time and be like, fucking hell, mate, okay, that looks like a D, right? There's barriers there, but technology can remove barriers and is removing barriers all the time. So I think we will see a widening of skill sets.
Leah gave me a bit of a side eye then when I was.
Oh, because your writing is
my
awful.
writing's not very good. But you've just reminded me though, talking about technology and the advancement of technology. One of my work colleagues got his, I think his kid is it a Google Home, one of the, or an Alexa or one of those things? Yeah, it must have been the Google one. And he said, "Oh, you're not putting it in your bedroom." The kid said, "Oh, please can I have it in my room?" Eventually got it in his room. Then went in to see how he was doing with his maths homework and walked into his room to find his kid going, "Okay, Google, what's 9 times 7?" And he was like, "Right, no, that's coming straight back out of your room." I was like, "Wow, it's an ingenious kid."
But why?
Yeah.
When I was so I have a story. So when I was started school, my first teacher, my reception teacher, so this was 1994. Yeah, 1994. Told my mum that his handwriting is awful, but don't worry about it because by the time he's an adult, he'll be typing everything. We'll all be typing everything anyway. And my mum had a go at that teacher because computers were the size of a car in 1994 and really went like, no, he needs to learn how to. It didn't work. I can't do handwriting. But there's a parallel there, isn't there? Of like, I don't know. There's a balance. There's a balance to be had of not losing skills if we are interested in them. But I'm definitely not in the world of kind of Ludditing for the sake of Ludditing.
Because we were just talking about maths and literacy, one of my questions was actually going to be, how do we teach literacy and numeracy outdoors? Or do we need to?
Well, I'm gonna take issue with the word teach, because I don't teach. I facilitate, I hold space for, I let things happen as they need to. So I think providing access and providing opportunities to literacy and maths is very different to how do we teach them. Because one of the big things that I am also very keen to avoid is one of the big things I'm trying to do outside is nature connection, right? Is this kind of thing, and developing a love of the outdoors and all these things. And I could really kill it if I make the outdoors punishing maths. If I make the association of pine cones that you had to count them, I could really fucking kill someone's love of nature, and I could do it in a day. I could do it like that, right? If someone's association of like coming out to natural spaces was that they needed to do, and you could do that with anything, right? That's the thing of like, if you make an association of something that's challenging and non-optional, by force, you are going to take other stuff with it. In the same way that lots of us don't. I mean, I don't know many people my age that have a fond association of libraries. Many people do, but for most people I know, their association of libraries was that there was a school library that you had to go to for one lesson a week, and you had to choose a book, and the teacher had to approve it, and it had to be the right color. And so that what could have been this incredible exploratory space to go and see has had negative connotations put with it that will stay with people for years. And that's one of the things that I'm really, if I can be totally honest, one of the things that I'm most nervous about with home education is, for all of the benefits of being like, you could go at their own pace and you don't have to use that yardstick and you do whatever else. Like, my kids do some formal literacy and maths and whatever else at a very kind of passable level. But one of the things that I don't ever want to do is to have them associate their frustration. Because, like, did you both go to school? Did you both go to state education? Do you have shitty connotations of subjects linked to shitty teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about this in detail.
So I worry that as parents, we sometimes might accidentally do that. That the connotation becomes your association of your dad was crappy maths at the table, or that because you don't have anywhere else to put it. In all the ways that we were talking earlier about, like, it's just the breakfast, it's just the school run and picking up after school. If you've got like, you don't like maths, maths always gets thrown under the bus. Let's not do maths. You don't like geography. Geography's really hard for you. You don't get it. It's really boring. You've got a bad geography teacher. You can just put it on them, and you can preserve a relationship with your parents. If one of your parents is the people that's forcing you to do geography, some of that relationship's going to get painted with the same brush. And I'm very cautious of how I approach stuff like that, to make sure to in the same way that I don't want people to associate pine cones with that kind of thing. I think if you really, really push that, like, we're going to do that thing of like, like it's home education in the UK and home schooling in the US, that, like, I think a lot of people in the US probably have an association of their parent as a schoolmaster because they're doing schooling. And for as much as people are like, oh, it's home ed and I want to have a different relationship with my kids, what percentage of it is schooling if your focus is like learning, and the focus is the person wants you to get better all the time, and like, I couldn't be in a, I often do this of like, compare it to like a peer-to-peer relationship. If one of my friends was constantly pushing me to be better, constantly putting something in front of me to go like, we did that last week, how about we go a bit more this week, I would not be friends with that person for very long. And you couldn't sustain a romantic relationship like that. If somebody pushes you to be a bit better, sometimes that's beneficial. But if somebody relentlessly said, I know, what we did last week, let's do a bit more, constantly, that's an unsustainable relationship, and I'm very conscious that that's not the relationship I want to have with my kids. And I think a focus on, that's what I mean about the yardstick, is like a focus on like learning, and like I have to make you learn stuff, potentially damages that relationship in a way that I'm not willing to do.
That leads us quite nicely into our next question, actually, which is, why did you decide to home educate your children?
The phrase I used to go was, "They're not having them," which I think sort of sums up my kind of views. Having been on the inside, having been on the inside, I know what the system is like. I know what the pressures. I know the pressures that people are under. And again, if I do that empathetic thing, I know the pressures that those teachers are under. So I know that the things that they have to deliver, the things they have to put in place, how much of classroom time is just crowd control, is just getting people to sit in the right place, is just getting people to do learned behaviors, all of that stuff. But also, I mean, the people that I work with now, when I see them, so I've been doing forest school now long enough that I have people who came to me as kids, who've got their own kids and are potentially about to come back, which is nuts. And it makes me feel like fucking Gandalf, right? Like I'm the oldest
Sorry, how
man in
long?
the
How
world.
long have you been doing this?
Like 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But when I see people out in the real world, not in the woods, once people have gotten over the fact that there's not trees behind me and they've remembered who I am, I know who they are. I know what they were interested in. I know like what their passions were. I know how they navigated stuff with like other people. Like I know them as people. I have bumped into people that I taught when I was a teacher. The only memory I have is like, you couldn't do full stops, could you? And you really struggled with the 4. You could do the 6 and the 8 times table, but 4 really stumped you, didn't it? And I don't want that to be someone's relationship with my kids.
Yeah. Oh, that's really
You
interesting.
don't have space to do it. If you had to learn 30 people, this is where I'm like, empathetically, pragmatically, you do not have the capacity to know 30 people in that much depth, whilst also delivering 5 lessons a day, 5 days a week, all that stuff. You just boil it down. It's survival.
How many people do you have in your forest school setting?
Never more than about 15. Because
Is that
that's
just with you, or do you have any other?
no. So we have to have 2 people, because what if I fall out of a tree? Yeah, it can happen.
But
I
yeah,
seem
yeah.
like the beacon of competency, but I promise you, I do sometimes slip and fall. So we have to have 2 or 3 adults with us in the woods all the time. So it's 3 adults mostly, to about 15 kids, and that ranges from 6-year-olds to like 14-year-olds. So much smaller. It's holistic. We do all the planning. We do a lot of planning together. We adapt stuff through the day. It's way more holistic, and that's the reason that I get to know who they are as people.
Do your kids go to your forest school?
I do, because I could.
Once again, I'm ignoring my list.
No.
I'm going on.
They do, and it's one of the things that allows us to home ed financially. I wouldn't be able to afford childcare 3 days a week, so just do the childcare and have the kids there.
Nice.
Not everyone who home eds can set up a childcare system. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
But
again, I'm ignoring my list. How do you approach your home education? Because we've discussed the sort of idea of you don't want to be looked at as this teacher and have that affect your relationship, and you have a different way of looking at learning. So especially when it comes to that, like an outside person going like, well, can they spell onomatopoeia yet? Or can they divide 93 by 2? Yeah, how do you approach it?
how do I? Well, I think at a very broad level, we go through. Do you remember the CGP, the cool guy with the glasses? Remember that guy? On all the revision guides, CGP revision guides. You ever have them? Oh, mate, you guys are missing out.
Might just be stored in the bank of I don't ever want to think about this again.
CGP revision guides. So they're like all through. They're a thing that I remember from my GCSEs, but they have books for all the subjects going through, and they're like workbooks and exercise books, like daily practice type stuff. And the deal is like, I think 3-ish days. If we, this is all like if we remember and if the day's plans make it make sense. We get the kids to do, 1 page of 3 of those books, and we sit with them and we help them out. And it's more like a skeleton that they can sort of hang some stuff on than a like deep kind of like, okay, no, you haven't, like, you must do this 100 times, you must practice this thing. It's more like exposure to the idea of paragraphs than rigorous, like, okay, now put the paragraphs in here, now do paragraphs again, now do it's like more like a guidebook to education that you could open and you walk around, and every day you're going to go, oh right, this is here today, is it? Oh, that's interesting. And if they want to follow it, they can follow it, and they might, it might be a week later, they go, that book doesn't use paragraphs in the right way, whatever else. It might be that they just are aware of it and they move on, and it's, yeah. So educational guidebooks, I think, is kind of the way we approach it. I struggle because I think the response that part of me wants to give, and that maybe I should give, is that like yardstick thing of like, we do maths with cooking, and we go outside and we do drawing and we do this, and like get really defensive about it, and like again try and meet the school curriculum at home, or to like justify it, but I don't want to do that because it's not the vibe I want. I'm very big on non-judgmental approaches and unconditional relationships, and so we do lots of stuff around social stuff, and we do lots of like, they do loads of groups. They are the busiest kids in terms of like clubs and whatever else. But it's taken them a long time to get there. We did a lot of like attachment parenting, and so where one of the things that was different was where lots of other kids say, what's the youngest, like scout, like scouts, where they're like beavers, where they're like younger than that, the 2 little ones. Our kids are, whatever the group is, our kids are always the ones that like need us to stay for longer or need us to stand by the door, because they just don't have that like rip and leave thing from school of like, boom, okay, they'll settle, don't worry, they'll settle. Like, we've never done that, so they've always needed longer to do those things. So that's been, my wife used to joke that like my kids are shit hot at like being a person, in that like they can get themselves dressed and brush their teeth and make their lunch boxes for the day and like sort out the kitchen and do all that stuff. But the reason that they've done that is because like when my son was like 3 or 4, sometimes getting dressed was the day. Like that was the day, and we would spend like 3 hours of him going, I'd like to go to the park. And we go, okay, cool. Like, let's go look at some clothes, and then kind of go, and again, neurodivergent, so would find a different thing. They go, we haven't gone to the park yet. You go, no, well, we needed to get dressed, didn't we? Oh yes, clothes. Oh, cuddly toys. When do you think we will go to the park today? Yeah, I probably will. We just need to do clothes. Right, yes, clothes, all this stuff. Right, and we do that for hours, hours and hours and hours. My wife and I are blessed with a lot of patience and a very kind of like, okay, cool. I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to make you. I can't. Because we've never manhandled the kids or cajoled them or bribed them or done whatever else. We're very sat back in a like, I can't make you do this. I can't make you do anything. I can't make you get in the car. I can't make you do whatever. I can choose not to drive the car if your seatbelt isn't on, but I can't make you put your seatbelt on. And so if we need to be here for a while, then we're just, we can't have like firm appointments that we need to get to. But that's that's a balance that we're striking, in the same way of like I can't I don't know, force you to get dressed. I'm not gonna hold my kids and yank trousers onto them, but I can choose not to open the front door and go to the park. I'm in charge of me, not them. I'm in charge of them a bit.
I mean, the getting dressed thing, that's pretty standard
Relatable,
in our
yeah.
house. It's very relatable. I think I quite often, I mean, I work from home, but I quite often come out at sort of the office at mid-afternoon or whatever to grab some lunch or grab a coffee, and I'm like, pajama day.
Like, efficient learning can still take place if you're in your pajamas.
That was not a criticism. It just makes me laugh. I'm like, yeah. They obviously weren't in the mood to get dressed today.
Again, moral judgments. We all have them baked in there of like getting dressed is morally correct.
I'm just jealous.
Getting dressed is what good people do. I'm being sarcastic for people that can't see. Getting dressed is what good people do. Upstanding citizens.
Yeah, I'm just jealous.
We did have in my house to institute a no bare butts on the sofa rule. That was a rule that we had to have. You can have your bare butt out, but you can't be on the sofa with your bare butt. That's a thing to decide.
That's a fair one.
That's a compromise. Yeah.
And I'm still working on it. Some days I don't get there.
It's a learning experience for all of you.
You thought it was the kids, didn't you? Oh, silly.
Wasn't sure. Is my one?
Yeah, I mean, we're not particularly in order with the questions. Just throw one out there.
You won't be able to have I don't know if you got it from the start, but you won't be able to have a linear conversation with me. It's not possible. You can do your best, but I'm in charge of me, and linear stuff is not happening.
Between us, then I love a tangent. So
I literally, when I ask people if they want to do an interview, I have to point out that sometimes I have to take out your tangents. Like, we edit, and sometimes I have to remove Tom's tangents.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
Keep them in. And we'll fluff it. We'll fluff it now because you took out that 45 minutes where you were talking about Rome, didn't you? That's not going to make it in.
And the entire section about the squirrel facts, not only encompassing the natural world, but also encompassing physics in terms of mass moving through the sky. And it was, yeah.
It's going to be a miracle if you can cut this down to, I don't know, 8-9 hours.
We will try.
I'm enjoying this, though. This is fun.
So, why should we spend more time outdoors? Obviously, you've gone into the whole forest school vibe. Like, what was it that inspired that side of it, and why should we spend more time outdoors as humans?
I think I got into I'm in forest school for the pedagogy. That the nature is a thing that I don't. It just happens. I'm not actively trying to push. I have, slightly higher than average bushcraft skills, but I'm not in any way trying to push bushcraft skills on people or stuff like that. I think we as animals we are part of nature. I think there's a big divide of like, why should we go into nature? You are nature everywhere you are right now, bare butt on the sofa, right? You are nature. Okay, so like there's this like division that exists in people's heads of like, we've got to go and do it, and there's like good kinds and bad kinds, and like, the flowers growing out of the cracks in some concrete are like are not good nature, but a lovely tree with a deer underneath it in the bluebell woodland, that is good nature, and we should go to the good nature. But like, the nature is everywhere. There's a study a few years ago that said that like the number one indicator of whether children would be nature connected adults was whether they had a nature connected adult in their childhood. Not access to nature, not frequency of visiting nature, not the quality or the resources that were available to them. It is having a person in your life that is connected to nature, because they will point it out and they will highlight it to you. And so you don't need to, it's incredibly privileged, right? I've bought 3 acres of woodland that is full of bluebells and deers and like lovely, and like, You should see my Instagram. It's shit hot. But like, but
It was only for Instagram.
yeah, of course, that's all it's there for. The kids aren't allowed to touch it. They have a little corner that they sit in. But to just acknowledge that, like, nature is everywhere. We are nature. You know, and I could trot out all of the normal things of like, oh, people are more regulated in nature. Birdsong reduces cortisol and brings heart rates down. When there's no walls, people don't bounce off them. I could literally like do all of this stuff, right? But I don't care about that anymore. Like, I care about like connecting people to stuff that is the more than human in the world, that like spiritual side of being out in nature. I care about the fact that, like, if you want to talk about non-judgmental spaces, natural spaces are one of the last bastions that are non-judgmental. When you sit under a tree, the tree does not care what gender you are, what your body size is. The tree doesn't care if you've exercised today. The tree will hold you exactly the same. So in turn, like, the tree doesn't care if you've done your homework. The tree doesn't care if you are or aren't doing literacy with your kids. The tree doesn't give a shit about any of that stuff. And that's why I like it, because people put that crap in it, right? People put that, like, you shouldn't be outside wearing headphones, or you shouldn't be like doing nature this way, or you should. There's a big thing about like doing. A lot of people associate being in nature with being alone. You know, like sitting and meditating, or sitting and being mindful in nature, which for the vast majority of human history would have been a fucking stupid idea, right? To be out in nature on your own. We're social animals. Go do the nature socially, right? But nature doesn't put any of that crap on us, right? Nature is there and accepts you exactly as you are, and that's why I think we should spend more time in it, because it doesn't judge you.
That was really beautiful. Thank you. I really like that. Tick.
I've not from a specific. I guess it is part of nature, but I've always really liked that about the sea as well. Is the sea is, I guess, it's unforgiving, but it's unforgiving to everybody. If you respect it, it is. You can really enjoy it. And I think I've said that to you a few times. That it's such a vast space that is full of like incredible life, and I've always liked. I think I've always liked being in the sea for the same reason.
I don't like being in the sea. I'm not meant
It's really
to be
cold,
in the sea.
isn't it?
No, I don't.
It's cold and
The overwhelming feeling I get when I go in the sea is the stuff that's in the sea is good at being in the sea, and I'm not. Everything else in here can swim and can like navigate around and knows where the currents are. Like, give me a tree and some dirt any day. I'm a big old monkey boy, right? That stuff makes sense. Everything in the sea can do it better than me.
I mean, I'm with you. And also, like, the sea is cold, and that's not pleasant.
Sometimes the woods is cold, to be fair, though. We can't really. I'm not going to jump on cold as a barrier.
No, but I feel like if you're in the woods, you can kind of layer up. You can make a fire. You can warm yourself up. If you're in the sea, like, even if you've got a wetsuit on, it's still, and then you have to get out and take the wetsuit off, and then you're basically getting hypothermia.
God, dismissing the sea is not part of nature.
I like
strong.
looking at it very much. Anyway,
It's the biggest part of nature.
Oh, okay. Cut out the hour where we talked about that.
We're not going to get. That's not on my question list.
Sorry.
Not that half of my questions have been. What is one outdoor activity that you secretly dislike but pretend to enjoy?
Oh, I don't pretend to enjoy any of them. I don't pretend. I mean, and what I mean by that is I don't have a job that needs me to pretend. I am an authentic person in my space, and I am fully capable of being like with a group of 6-year-olds, being like, I think some of you might get stuff out of this. I don't, because I've got 2 bad knees, right? But I think you guys are going to get stuff out of this. So I'm going to set it up, and if you want to do it, you can do it. But if you don't, I totally get it. So,
Because I've got 2 bad knees.
well, yeah, this is what you. Well, actually, when you get older, you don't have left and right knees. You have good and bad knee.
Or bad and bad
Or
knee.
bad and bad knee. They're different bads though. Okay, if you want to go off the tangent, people that don't use their knees end up with bad knees and when they're older. People that use their knees, like me, for sport, get bad knees. Knees are just bad. What's the
You're
point?
screwed
It
either
doesn't
way.
matter if you do or don't use your knees. You will get bad knees. Knees just become bad knees.
Another lesson learned.
Well, I think a lot of it is to do with a total tangent. We will have to cut this one out, but a lot of it is to do with how we are taught or not taught to run when we are younger.
Oh sure.
And
Oh sure.
the shoes and the massive heels they have on things now.
Oh mate, I'm in Vivos 24/7.
How are you?
Yeah. Yeah. All this kind of barefooting.
Yeah, I relearned to run like a few years ago in the Vibram 5 Fingers to try and start using my biomechanics a bit more. But
Have you ever done like rope flow stuff?
oh no.
Oh, okay. Snip, snip. So there's a thing called biotensegrity, which is that like the models that we traditionally use to understand the human body are based on outdated mechanics like hinges and balls and sockets, because that's the mechanical models that made sense 100 years ago. But biotensegrity is do you know those balls that you go like this with and they stretch and they come out? They're all like hinges, and you go like that and the ball gets bigger, and then
Yep.
you go like that and the ball goes. There it doesn't. There's places
I-
entirely blank.
They're like plastic, normally plastic things, and they've got they're kind of crisscross like that.
Is that those like
And
little plastic toys that were always like, don't waste your money on that because you won't play with it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's biotensegrity, is that every joint in your body is held together by tendons like that, and that they move in motion. That's why we're all held. That's why like hinge joints don't make sense. So rope flow is moving your body in like circular and fluid motions, because you have to acknowledge that when you move your shoulder, it actually moves your hip, and that we can't do this kind of like very isolated thing of like, this is a ball and socket joint and your knee is a hinge joint, and actually like they're all linked. And so there's stuff like, if you imagine spinning a rope like underhand, like you're throwing a ball underhand, right? And you're doing like underhand throw that hand and underhand throw with that hand. And if you were swapping them, like underhand with your left, underhand with your right, this is what your shoulders should do when you run. And that kind of circular motion is way more efficient and doesn't put stress on the joints, where compared to hinge, and even the land on your toes thing, it still puts shocks through. Whereas if you're flowing in this kind of way, and then there's all different kind of anyway.
Oh, it's
Snip,
really.
snip,
I now want to look it up though.
Well, no, very quickly. So I've heard. I've not heard it called rope flow, but I have spoken to a physio that I see fairly regularly about the fact that all your fascia are all connected all the way through your body, and if you've got all these like small pockets of fluid around all your joints, which all are helping all the fascia and everything move. And if you don't move everything like a few times a day, those things start to seize up or start to dry up a little bit, like wheels on a car or whatever it might be. That actually moving in the way that you just mentioned would mean that you moved everything, and you would kind of, if in effect, grease the wheels a couple of times a day at least, and therefore keep your body in much better balance.
That's a very chosen word.
Yeah, well, it was very. I was trying to think of a good word for it, but yeah, much better state to give yourself longevity.
Oh, I just thought equilibrium. That
Yeah.
sounds like a good appropriate word. Pick a question.
So I think we've probably covered that one. So what do you think children gain in the outdoors that they might not in a classroom environment? I think you've probably touched on that through various of the questions that we've had this evening.
Yeah,
so
probably.
Unless there's anything specific, we can probably skip over that one. And
anything you'd like to add to that?
I think there are benefits to being in the outdoors just generally, but a bit like I mentioned earlier about like you can really kill associations with maths. I think sometimes then people say that just being outside is good, and therefore whatever they do outside is good. Whereas actually, I think the content of what you are facilitating and holding space for in the outdoors is 80% of it, and then the rest of it is the natural space and the bird song and the all those things. So I think there are benefits to being outdoors, but that's not the end of the needs, if you know what I mean.
Could you please elaborate on the things that you facilitate that you kind of mentioned there?
Well, I think the facilitation being like the modeling that you're doing in terms of how you navigate social stuff, the way that you hold space in terms of like the routines that you might have, the rituals, the ceremony, the community building, those things, the validating, the showing of interest, that stuff is the space holding. It just it would be different, but I could space hold in another place. Do you know what I mean? With that same ethos, it wouldn't be the same because the space is, in a Reggio Emilia kind of approach, the space is one of is the third teacher. It's one of the things. But it is a massive factor because in that same way that we were talking about, like the sea being a leveler. See, now you have to keep it in. The sea being a leveler, the woods. So I can be predictable and I can be, holistic and whatever else. I can't control the weather. I can't control the natural environment. So that is unpredictable. And I am there to hold space while we navigate that unpredictability together. Whereas I think the flip side would be in a classroom setting, the space is entirely consistent. It is the same classroom every day. It is the same walls. It is the same display. The temperature is the same unless the boiler's broken or it doesn't get turned on until, December or whatever it is. But that's consistent. And then the bit that you're navigating is the bit that the adult is throwing in front of you. Whereas I'm doing the opposite. I'm on your team and we're navigating this natural space that is unpredictable together.
So do you have a much more like a less hierarchical approach?
Almost
Are
no
you more
hierarchy whatsoever.
Yeah.
Roles, yes, but hierarchies, no. So in that sense that like in a community, you could have somebody that was like the minute taker of a meeting, but that person is not better than anybody else in the room. It's just that they're providing a role. And if you can also see that like the person that provides the refreshments is providing a role and the person that gets the chairs out is providing a role. There are different roles in a community without there necessarily being hierarchy. I work with a lot of and have through the years worked with a lot of people who have a PDA profile of autism. I don't know if you've come across PDA. So that like persistent what's the official one is pathological demand avoidance, but we don't use that. I use persistent drive for autonomy because it's much more clear and that's actually what's going on. Pathological's got such terms to it, but persistent drive for autonomy.
I like yours better.
Means that there can't have hierarchy. Doesn't work. And I also can't have hierarchy because I think I have a little bit of PDA going on myself, which is why I couldn't mark 90 books and I couldn't, sit in assemblies and do whatever else and all that stuff. But so we do a lot of declarative language. We do a lot of non-judgmental approaches. We do a lot of, raising people's autonomy as much as we can, and that seems to be very beneficial, and a lot of people get a lot out of it.
Nice.
Do you want to do that one?
Yeah. So when I originally wrote it, my question was, how do you approach assessment or progress tracking in a forest school setting? And now, I guess that you don't in that kind of traditional sense. But how do you know that they are progressing as a human in a way that you think is good, if that's a better form of question?
I mean, you need to do a video of all of the hand gestures that just came with that question, because the question was like a big piece of clay and you couldn't quite find the shape of it and it got like smushed as it came. It was like this. It was lovely. To that question found a shape. because I think the thing that you were smushing into shape as you asked that question is like you got to the word progressing, and then I've already talked about the fact that like I don't think they need to progress, and so then it becomes this question of like, why is progress the default thing? Why is progress the thing that I should be delivering? Why, and quotes, why is progress the thing? Why is progress the thing that we're assessing rather than like why, so we do loads of observations. We are writing and doing verbal observations all of the time. Our sessions are both moment to moment and session to session based on what we have seen happening. What do people need? And that's not need to progress, it's what do they need? End of sentence. Because that's what I want to do, because I think that when people have what they need, they will naturally then explore things if they are interested in. They will naturally like progress and do whatever else. But you can only do that if you're. Do you know the safe harbor metaphor? Have you guys come across that like before? So like if you think about the big old wooden ships going out into sea, and there's potentially pirates out there, but there's also adventure and there's all these things. That ship can only do that if it has a safe harbor to come back to. So this is attachment theory, basically, which is that like if you sent a ship out and that ship knows that there is a calm water of consistency where their needs will get met and repairs can be done, that ship is in a way better state to go off and do adventures and do risky things and navigate the world than a ship that knows that the only place it can come back to has choppy waters and it might not get the repair it needs and all those things. So I am the safe harbor, the sessions are the safe harbor, which then means that people can go and do exploratory things somewhere else, knowing that when they come back, I'm never going to be like, well, what were you doing? I'm never going to be like, listen, here's how you fix it. Here's the things you have to do. I'm never going to judge what they did. I'm never going to judge what they said. So they can, I'm just meeting needs to make them feel safe and secure while they're with me, which means that quite often I'm not the space that sees the progress. If you want to ask where the progress is, the progress happens at home, or the progress happens at their other social settings, or the progress happens when they go and see nanny and granddad. I'm the safe harbor, that my sessions are the safe place that they can go and do something challenging at the weekend, knowing that they will come back to this safe and secure environment where there's no judgments and their needs will be met to the best of my ability. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of assessment and observation, not like, we talked before about that linear thing of school and push, 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 push. And like, I'm just a place where I'm not pushing so that they can push elsewhere. Because otherwise you get that thing of like, you get pushed at home, then you get pushed at school, then you get pushed at your martial arts club, then you get pushed at whatever. And where's the safe harbor? Where's the security? So that's what I do, and that's what I'm observing and trying to meet.
That also was very beautiful.
Thanks, man. I'm good at this shit.
Yeah, that's great. Me too. It's almost like you've been doing it for a long time or
I've
something.
been doing it for a long time, and I've got like 200 episodes of a podcast. I'm cooking, man.
Well, I know you're an early riser, so we've only got a few more, and we have been talking to you now for at least 16 or 17 hours. So I'll try and keep the last few brief.
This one is a purely selfish one, which is, what are the best provisions to keep in your garden to promote learning?
You.
Oh, okay, that's easy.
You.
Cool.
That's it. I mean, I've. Yeah, sorry.
You don't need any fancy logs or anything.
Oh yes, I'm selling logs. They're £18 a log. You can get them. Just email admin at the Forest School Podcast. I will post you logs. They're Montessori approved. They're homemade, a small scale supplier, a guaranteed maths progress, literacy writing prompt, biology, fucking science.
Are they organic?
No.
Oh, No good. No good.
And I will point out at this point that we don't have like the rule about the sofa. We don't have that in the garden. So at your own risk for any of the stuff that may be on those sticks.
Oh, brilliant.
Well, at least I don't have to spend a lot on the garden. You go.
Yeah, you can take this one.
I'll just do all of it, shall I?
Yeah.
If you could redesign the whole education system, what would it look like?
So we have done this on our podcast. We did a like full manifesto. What would it look like? So I won't do the full hour because soon it'll be winter and we'll have to stop this recording.
Can you give us the episode number? Do you know what number it was?
Of course not. What part of this like chat so far makes you think that I've retained
200.
that kind of number?
200.
Some kind of there's some numbers in the 100 and somethings. I can give you the nugget, which was that we wanted to move to like a mentor-based approach to education. It's particularly secondary education, a mentor-based approach, and that it would move to portfolios of real work, portfolios of like if you want to be a woodworker, that you would amass over 5 years this portfolio of woodworking projects and photos and whatever else. You just get access to the things, a mentor that can help you to go, we might want to have a look at this kind of guy, or maybe check out this book. And then that's the portfolio that you then take to employers and go, here it is. This is what I've done. And maybe for some people that's a very narrow portfolio of just woodworking, and for some people that's a portfolio that is like, here's a couple of woodworking projects, also here's some coding that I did, and here's like an art project, and also I've made you a cake. and that's your thing, that's your portfolio, you know. And that goes with you, and that doesn't necessarily then stop, you know. That's how CVs work. Once you get into the real world, it's like here is a portfolio of projects I've been involved in, whether that's
That
like
makes so much
retailing,
more sense.
you know, that might be like,
So much
here is
more.
my portfolio of like shops I have worked in over the last 5 years. I've done retail here, and I've done customer service here, and I've done, you know, these are some of the things that my bosses have said. Like you just basically doing CVs earlier, but with support and access to resources to freely explore it. That's the nugget.
Well, we'll find and link the episode
Good luck,
in
mate.
the show notes as well. We'll see if we can find and link the episode in the show notes. If we can't find it, we'll cut this bit out.
Yeah, agreed. Just the last 60, 70 minutes.
At least. So the last question we've got for you is
The same question we ask everyone and we always finish on.
is do you have any tips or advice for those families new to home education, or even in home education that...
Or us.
Do I have any tips? I think I said, like I said earlier, there are as many ways to home ed as there are people doing home ed. I think the advice I would give to people starting, but also who have been doing it for a while, is to give yourself permission to change it as much and as often as you need to, because your children will be different people week to week. You will be different people week to week. And it's so easy to live in a world where we're like focused on like, well, what will happen when they're 16, and what will happen when they're this, and what will happen to me, and I need to get systems and routines in place, and it's only good if it's consistent. And like, that's not true at all. If you do something for a month and then it stops working, just stop doing it. Do something different. Don't tie yourself to what you thought home ed was going to look like the day that you took your kids out of school. Don't tie yourself to what you thought it was going to look like when they were 5 and 7. Don't you know, just to give yourself and also to know that you are different people. So you might not be capable of something right now that you will be in the future. And so to give yourself the grace to say, do you know what? Can't do that right now. Can't do maths for a bit because I have to work on my own stuff, because I went through a school system and maths is really chewing me out. And so it's okay if we don't do maths in 2025, because maybe we'll do it in 2026. Maybe I've got other stuff to work on. And the maths that you do in 2026 might be so much better because you haven't like forced it and beaten yourself up about it. And equally, you need to be able to go, I could do that last year, but something else has changed now and I'm not able to do that anymore. And that is equally okay. To just kind of hold space for the family, hold space for yourself. It'd be all right.
Thank you. That's really lovely advice.
Agreed.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our
And
show.
highly entertaining.
Yeah, it's been great fun. Even if it is 2 days later now. But yes, we'll link your podcast at the bottom of ours and add it to the show notes. And
so go on, guys. You've got 200 episodes to get through. And if you've enjoyed this show, please share it with a friend and leave us a review. And thank you again.
Pleasure.
And we'll see you in the next one.